The wind carried the sound of fear. Smoke rose above the hills and the ground trembled with every heavy step of the enemy. In the heart of the valley, the village of Laura prepared for what seemed like its final battle. The sky was gray, the air filled with ash, and people clutched spears, bows, or even simple tools, anything that could serve as a weapon. Erin stood at the front, her broken armor patched with leather and iron scraps. Her dark hair was tied back, her face marked by dust and determination. She was not only a warrior, but also the protector of her people. Behind her stood the villagers, farmers, hunters, and children who had never known peace. They all looked to her for courage. The Zareth were coming. Everyone knew the name of these conquerors. They were tall, armored beings with glowing eyes and weapons that spat fire. They moved like a storm, and no village had ever resisted them for long. Arin had fought them many times, but each time the battles grew harder. Now the Zareth army was marching in full force. Erin's hand gripped her spear. She felt the wood press into her palm, the last weapon she trusted. Around her, the villagers whispered, asking if they could survive. She silenced them with her steady gaze. "We do not run," Arin said, her voice firm though her heart pounded. "This is our home. We fight not because we can win easily, but because no one else will fight for us. If this is our end, let it be with courage." The villagers nodded, some with tears, some with clenched jaws. The sound of drums echoed from the hills. The Zareth appeared at the ridge, their armor shining under the faint light. They carried long rifles, sharp blades, and energy shields. They marched with perfect order, a wall of iron and fire. The ground seemed to shake as they descended into the valley. Arin raised her spear and shouted, "Hold the line!" The first wave of Zareth charged. Their weapons fired streaks of burning light that struck huts and set roofs aflame. Villagers screamed, but they held their ground. Arin led the front, her spear thrusting at the first enemy to cross the barricade. The tip pierced through the weak joint of the alien's armor, and the giant fell with a roar. The villagers cheered, their courage rising. Erin spun her spear, shouting for them to push back. Arrows flew, stones hurled, and spears struck. For a moment, the humans resisted the storm, but the Zareth were too many. More poured down the hill, their formation tightening. Their blades cut through defenses, their weapons blasted holes through walls. The villagers fell one after another, their cries mixing with the sound of battle. Arin fought like fire, her spear flashing with speed. She cut down 3, then 4, moving with desperate strength. She blocked a blade, twisted, and struck the throat of another. Yet the enemy surrounded her, their armor glinting, their eyes cold. Her spear struck again, but with a sharp crack, the wooden shaft snapped in half. Erin stumbled back, holding the broken piece in her hand. Her heart sank. Without her spear, she was exposed. The Zareth circled her, laughing in their strange metallic voices. One raised his blade high. Erin stood tall, ready to fight with her bare hands if she had to. She knew this might be her end. And then, the sky split open. A blazing light streaked across the clouds, a fireball rushing down like a falling star. The ground shook as it struck the battlefield, throwing dust and sparks into the air. Both humans and Zareth froze, shielding their eyes. From the crater, a figure rose. He was not like the Zareth, nor like the villagers. He wore strange armor of silver and black, scarred from fire. His face was pale but strong, his eyes sharp with focus. He carried a weapon unlike anything Erin had seen, a sleek device glowing with energy. The Zareth growled, uncertain. The figure stepped forward, raising his weapon. With a burst of light, he fired. A beam shot across the air, striking one of the Zareth and sending it crashing to the ground. Another fell, smoke rising from its chest plate. The villagers gasped. Erin's eyes widened. This stranger fought like no one she had ever seen. The man spoke, his voice steady though his breathing was heavy. "Mind if I join the fight?" Erin blinked, almost not believing her ears. She nodded sharply. "Stand with us, stranger." He smiled briefly, then turned to face the Zareth. The aliens roared and charged, but the man met them with fire and steel. His weapon spat light faster than their rifles. His movements were sharp, precise, trained by battles far beyond this world. He fought not as a desperate villager, but as a soldier who knew war. Arin's courage returned. She picked up a fallen spear and fought again, this time with new hope. With the stranger at her side, the line held. The villagers rallied, striking back with renewed strength. The battle raged on. Dust and fire filled the air. The Zareth pressed hard, but for the first time they did not break the humans. For the first time the villagers stood tall against the storm. Hours passed like minutes. At last, the remaining Zareth pulled back, dragging their wounded. Their commander shouted in rage, but even he could not deny the truth. The humans had survived. Silence fell over the battlefield. Smoke curled upward, and the villagers stood among ruins, exhausted but alive. Erin leaned on her spear, her chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. Her eyes turned to the stranger. He lowered his weapon, his face pale but calm. He looked at the people, then at Erin. "My name is Jalen," he said quietly. "I fell from the sky." Erin stepped closer, studying him. "You came when we needed you most. You are no spirit, no god, but you fight like both." Jalen gave a faint smile. "I am only human, but I don't run from a fight." The villagers gathered, staring at him with awe. They whispered his name as if it carried magic. To them he was a sign. To Erin he was hope. Her spear had broken, her strength almost lost. But when the world seemed darkest, a human had fallen from the sky, and the battle was no longer theirs alone. The night was quiet, broken only by the crackle of burning ruins. Yet for the first time in years, the villagers felt more than fear. They felt something new, something powerful. They felt the spark of victory. The dawn after the battle was heavy with silence. Smoke still rose from the broken huts, and the smell of fire lingered in the air. The villagers of Laura moved among the ruins, pulling out the wounded, covering the dead, and trying to rebuild what little they could. At the center of the village, near the blackened well, stood the stranger, Jalen. His armor was scratched, his weapon low on energy, and his body carried marks of struggle. Yet he stood tall, like a soldier waiting for the next order. The villagers kept their distance, whispering, staring at him with both awe and fear. Erin approached, her spear reforged from scraps of wood and steel. She had led her people for years, but this man, who fell from the sky, had turned the tide of the battle in a single night. She stopped a few steps from him. "You saved us," she said simply. Jalen turned his tired eyes to her. "No, I stood with you. You saved yourselves. I only gave you a chance." Erin studied him. His voice was steady, his words humble, but she had seen how he fought. No one in her world could match that skill. "You are not from here," she said firmly. He nodded. "My ship. It was attacked above your planet. I escaped in a pod. That's how I fell." He paused, his gaze drifting to the mountains. "I didn't expect to land in the middle of a battle." Erin allowed a small smile. "Perhaps the sky chose well." Jalen gave a faint chuckle, but his face soon grew serious. He knelt beside his weapon, checking its small, glowing core. "This won't last long," he muttered. "What is it?" Erin asked, tilting her head. "An energy rifle," he said. "Powerful, but it needs charge. Without a source, it will run dry. After that, I'll be no better armed than you." Erin frowned. Her people had bows, spears, and blades, nothing close to what he carried. "Even without it, you fight better than any warrior I've seen." Jalen looked at her with a quiet expression. "Where I come from, we train for years. Humanity has faced wars that nearly ended us. We learned never to stop fighting, no matter how dark it gets." The villagers had gathered closer, listening. Children peered from behind their mothers, eyes wide. To them, his words were strange, but they carried strength. One old man stepped forward. "Are there more like you? More humans from the sky?" Jalen's face softened. "Yes, many. But I don't know if they know I'm alive. My ship was destroyed. I am alone for now." A silence followed. Alone. The villagers understood that word too well. Erin broke it. "You may be alone, but not here. Not now. You are with us." Jalen studied her, then gave a small nod. "Then I'll stand with you, until your people are safe." That day, the stranger became part of the village. Jalen walked through the ruined homes, helping rebuild walls, lifting heavy beams, and carrying water from the stream. The villagers watched him, still unsure if he was a gift from the heavens or just a man. But his hands worked like theirs. His sweat mixed with theirs, and slowly their fear eased. At night around the fire, Erin sat beside him. The flames painted their faces with light. She asked him about his world, about the humans beyond the stars. Jalen spoke of vast cities, of oceans wider than any valley, of skies filled with ships. He spoke of struggles too, wars, hardships, and the long road of survival. The villagers listened, amazed. They had never imagined such things. When he finished, Aaron leaned forward. "Your people sound strong." "We are," Jalen said, his voice quiet. "But strength means little unless you use it to protect others. That's why I fight." Aaron nodded slowly. She understood those words deeply. Days turned to weeks. The Zareth did not return immediately, but their shadow hung over the valley. Everyone knew they would come again, and next time, in greater numbers. Jalen would not let the village wait helplessly. He began training them. At dawn, he gathered the men and women in the fields. He showed them how to stand in lines, how to move together instead of apart. He taught them to use spears not just for thrusting but for forming walls. He showed hunters how to shoot in rhythm, covering one another. At first, the villagers stumbled. They were farmers, not soldiers. But Jalen was patient, his voice steady, his corrections sharp but never cruel. "Discipline," he said again and again. "Courage is fire. Discipline is the steel that carries it." Aaron stood beside him, helping translate his strange terms into words her people understood. Soon she became his partner in training, her voice strong as she commanded the lines. The villagers began to move with purpose, their fear shaping into skill. Children carried water for the fighters. Elders sharpened spears. The whole village became part of the effort. At night, when they were too tired to train, Jalen used parts from his escape pod to craft simple tools. He showed them how to make traps, smoke bombs, and even crude shields with metal plates. Each creation was strange to the villagers, but they trusted him. Aaron watched closely, learning from him. She admired not just his skill, but his will. He did not give up, even when his weapon's glow dimmed, even when his wounds ached. He carried a fire that would not fade. One evening, scouts rushed back with news. The Zareth were gathering again. This time in greater force. Fear rippled through the village. Aaron looked at Jalen. He met her eyes calmly. "They'll come soon, but we'll be ready." The villagers nodded, their fear mixed with determination. For the first time, they believed they could stand. That night, Jalen sat alone at the edge of the camp, staring at the stars. Aaron joined him. For a moment, they said nothing. Finally, she spoke. "You gave us hope. I have not seen this in years. Why? Why risk your life for people you don't know?" Jalen's eyes stayed on the sky. "Because humanity learned long ago. If you don't stand for others, one day no one will stand for you. Alone, we fall. Together, we survive." Aaron's heart stirred at his words. She had fought for her people for years, but always with the weight of despair. Now, for the first time, she felt something else rising, belief. She looked at him, the man who fell from the sky. "Then we will stand together." Jalen turned to her, his expression steady, his eyes full of quiet fire. Until the end. When the Zareth came again, the valley did not tremble in fear. The villagers stood in lines, shields raised, spears ready, smoke pots hidden among the fields. Aaron stood at the front, her spear shining with new steel, her eyes fierce. Jalen stood beside her, his weapon charged for one last battle. The Zareth commander roared, his soldiers charging in a tide of fire and steel. And for the first time, the people of Laura did not scatter. They did not break. They fought as one, with courage, with discipline, with the fire of a human soldier guiding them. The stranger had become their shield. His fire had become theirs. The battle had only begun, but hope was alive. The sun had set and the valley was wrapped in shadows. The villagers of Laura gathered in silence, their faces lit by the faint glow of torches. The air was heavy with tension. Everyone knew the Zareth were near. Scouts had seen their fires in the hills, and the ground sometimes shook with the sound of their armored march. But this time, the people were not only afraid, they were ready. At the edge of the training field, Jalen stood with Aaron. His armor was scratched, his weapons glowed dim, yet his eyes were steady. Beside him, Aaron gripped her spear, its tip reforged with a piece of his escape pod's metal. She looked over the villagers, now arranged in neat lines, each holding a spear, bow, or shield. Their faces showed fear, but also determination. "They are ready," Aaron whispered. Jalen nodded. "Not perfect soldiers," he said quietly. "But soldiers enough." Aaron gave him a sharp smile. "Perfection is not needed. Only courage." That night the Zareth came. The first signs were distant drums, deep and steady, echoing through the valley like thunder. Then came the glow of their weapons, bright streaks of fire in the darkness. The villagers tightened their grip on their weapons. Children were hidden deep in the caves, guarded by the elders. Everyone else stood ready. Jalen moved along the line, speaking softly. "Hold together. Watch each other. Do not break." Aaron's voice rose loud and strong. "This is our home. Do not give them one step without a fight." The Zareth charged, their glowing eyes cutting through the dark. They came with shields and rifles, blades and cruel laughter. Their size and armor made them look like giants in the night. But this time, the villagers did not scatter. At Jalen's signal, smoke pots were lit. Thick black clouds rose into the air, blinding the enemy's glowing sights. Arrows rained down from the ridges, striking at gaps in the armor. Spears thrust from behind wooden shields, forming a wall. The first wave of Zareth slammed against the human line, but the wall held. Aaron thrust her spear forward, piercing through the joint of a towering enemy's leg. He crashed to the ground, roaring. Another raised a blade, but Jalen fired his weapon, dropping him with a burst of light. The villagers shouted with courage. For once, they were not prey. They were warriors. The battle raged in the dark. Jalen moved like a shadow, his rifle firing in sharp bursts, his other hand wielding a blade he had crafted from wreckage. His training showed in every step. He ducked under a swing, countered with a strike, then shouted commands for the villagers to tighten their formation. Arin was his mirror, leading with her voice and strength. She shouted orders, kept the line steady, and fought with relentless fury. Her spear flashed again and again. Her movements guided not just by survival, but by the belief that they could truly win. The Zareth, used to easy victories, found themselves trapped in chaos. The smoke blinded them, the trap slowed them, and the villagers fought with unity they had never shown before. What should have been an easy conquest became a desperate struggle. Still, the enemy was strong. Their armor deflected many blows, their rifles cut through shields, and their numbers seemed endless. Slowly, the villagers were pushed back. Fear began to creep into their hearts once more. Jalen saw it. His voice cut through the night like steel. "Do not give up. Look at them, they bleed like you. They fall like you. They can be beaten." His words struck the villagers like fire. They shouted together, pushing back with all their strength. Aaron lifted her spear high and cried out, "For Laura! For our people!" The battle shifted again, hours passed. The moon hung high, casting pale light over the smoke and ruin. The ground was littered with fallen Zareth and humans alike, but the village line still held. Finally, the enemy commander called for retreat. The Zareth pulled back, dragging their wounded. Their roars of anger echoed as they disappeared into the hills. The villagers stood stunned. They had survived another battle, one they were never meant to win. Cheers broke out. Cries of joy and relief spread across the field. Families embraced, tears streaming down their faces. Children ran from the caves, clinging to their parents. For the first time in living memory, the Zareth had been forced to retreat. Aaron dropped her spear to the ground, her chest rising and falling with exhaustion. She looked at Jalen, who leaned heavily on his weapon, sweat running down his face. "We did it," she whispered. Jalen gave a tired smile. "You did it, together." Aaron shook her head. "Without you, we would have been crushed. You gave us the fire." Jalen's eyes softened. "The fire was already here. I only helped you see it." That night the village celebrated. Fires burned high, food was shared, songs were sung. For once the sound of laughter filled the air instead of cries of grief. Jalen sat apart at the edge of the fire, repairing his weapon. Aaron joined him, sitting cross-legged. For a while they said nothing, simply watching the villagers rejoice. Finally Aaron spoke. You are more than just a soldier. You are a teacher. You gave us more than weapons, you gave us hope. Jalen paused, then set down the weapon. Hope is dangerous. It can burn too bright, and when it fades, it leaves people in the dark. Erin shook her head firmly. No. Hope is what keeps us standing. Without it, we're already lost. Jalen looked at her, then slowly nodded. Maybe you're right, my people. We have lived by hope too, she studied him. You miss them, don't you? Your people, your world. A shadow crossed his face. Every day. But until I see them again, I'll fight here. Humanity doesn't abandon allies. Erin's heart stirred at his words. She reached out, resting her hand briefly on his arm. Then you are not alone. Not anymore. But even in the joy of victory, danger was near. Far in the hills, the Zareth commander stood before his battered troops. His armor was dented, his pride wounded. Never before had he faced such resistance from villagers. Never before had he been forced to retreat. His glowing eyes burned with fury. This is no ordinary village, he growled. There is something else here. Something. Human. His lieutenants bowed, waiting for orders. Gather more, the commander said coldly. We will return with the full legion. Burn everything. Leave nothing alive. Back in Laura, the villagers slept under the stars, dreaming for the first time of a future without chains. But Jalen did not sleep. He sat on the hill, staring at the night sky. He knew the Zareth would come again, stronger and angrier than before. This battle was only the beginning, but he also knew something else. The villagers had learned discipline. They had learned courage. And most of all, they had learned to believe. Erin joined him on the hill, her spear resting across her knees. She looked at the stars, then at him. Fire in the dark, she said softly. Jalen raised his brow. What? That's what you are, she explained. When everything is dark, you burn bright, and now we burn too. He smiled faintly, the first true smile since he had fallen from the sky. Then maybe we have a chance. They sat together in silence, watching the stars. The night was quiet, but both knew storms were coming. And when they came, humanity's fire would be waiting. The valley of Laura slept uneasily. The villagers had rebuilt what they could, walls patched with timber, shelters reinforced with stone, and watchtowers rebuilt along the ridge. Fires burned at night not just for warmth but as signals of vigilance. Every villager understood one truth: the Zareth would return. Arin walked among them, inspecting weapons and formations. She observed hunters practicing with bows, farmers testing their new shields, and children learning to carry small spears under supervision. Her heart swelled with pride. The village had become something more than a home. It had become a force, and Jalen had turned them into fighters. Jalen stood at the far end of the field, speaking to a group of villagers who were learning how to set traps. His voice was calm but firm, cutting through the evening air. Think ahead. Every path, every hill, every corner can be used against the enemy. Use your land. Make it your weapon. Erin approached him quietly. They will come again, she said. Jalen didn't need to look at her. He already knew. They will. And they will bring more. This time not just a squad. They will bring a legion. Erin's eyes narrowed. A legion? How can we survive that? Jalen shrugged. We don't just survive, we fight. We make them pay for every step. Humanity has never faced defeat that it did not rise from. Neither will you. Erin studied him, feeling the weight of his confidence. She wanted to believe it. She needed to believe it for the people, for the children, for the memory of those already lost. Far in the hills, the Zareth commander had gathered his forces. The smell of smoke and metal filled the air. His troops were larger than before, armored and armed to the teeth, and his fury had not diminished. Every failure, every wounded soldier burned in his pride. This village dares to resist us, he roared, pacing before his generals. His glowing eyes fixed on the map of the valley below. They are nothing, yet they fight like gods. This is not acceptable. A lieutenant bowed. Commander, perhaps we should retreat and strike elsewhere. There are weaker villages. The commander's voice was sharp, cutting through the night. No, they will not escape. They must be punished. We will crush them completely, and I will do it personally. I will show the galaxy that no one can challenge the Zareth. His pride was a weapon as sharp as any sword. He ordered the preparation of siege weapons, and the troops marched through the night, carrying flamethrowers, massive shields, and energy blades. Nothing would be left of Laura. He promised himself that. Back in the valley, Aaron and Jalen worked through the night. They mapped the hills, marking paths where traps could be set and choke points where the villagers could ambush. Jalen taught them to use fire, smoke, and noise to confuse the enemy. He made them practice coordination, moving together as one unit instead of scattered groups. "This is your land," he reminded them. "Every tree, every rock, every ditch can help you. Use it. Make the Zareth pay for every step." Aaron watched the villagers absorb his lessons. Men and women, once unsure of themselves, now moved with confidence. Hunters who had only chased deer now learned to circle their enemies, attack from above, and retreat without panic. Farmers learned to use their tools as weapons, and even children learned to signal alarms and move safely under cover. The village had become something new, a living trap, prepared for the enemy, ready for fire in the dark. The first attack came before dawn. Scouts reported movement in the distant hills. The Zareth commander's forces were advancing silently, their glowing eyes scanning the valley, their weapons ready. Jalen moved among the villagers, his rifle prepared, his eyes sharp. "They will test us first," he said. "Small squads probing our lines. Don't fall for their tricks." Aaron raised her spear and walked along the front line. "Remember, hold together. Protect each other. Fear is only an enemy if you let it touch you." The first wave of Zareth appeared, smaller than the main force, but dangerous nonetheless. They charged down the slope, expecting the same chaos they had faced before. But the villagers were ready. Smoke rose from pits, arrows struck from hidden positions, and the ground itself seemed alive with traps. Zareth soldiers tripped over snares, fell into pits, and ran into walls of sharpened stakes. Confused, the attackers faltered. Aaron leapt forward, spear flashing. She struck the first soldier who emerged from the smoke, and the villagers followed her lead. Jalen moved swiftly, firing precise bursts from his rifle, striking key targets that threatened the villagers. The attackers were thrown into disarray. The first wave was destroyed not by strength alone, but by planning, coordination, and courage. Hours later, the main force arrived. The Zareth commander himself descended with an army twice the size of the first. Flames lit the hills as his troops marched in perfect order. Aaron felt a chill in her chest, but she stood firm. "They are more than soldiers," Jalen whispered, reading the signs. "They are proud. They fight with their pride as a weapon. We must be sharper." He guided the villagers to strategic positions. Small groups were hidden along narrow passes, armed with traps and explosives. Smoke bombs obscured sightlines, and fire pits were prepared to block charges. Every move had a purpose, every soldier knew their role. When the Zareth arrived, confident of an easy victory, the traps activated. Fire erupted from the hills, blinding the first ranks. Arrows and spears struck from above, taking down key fighters. Pits swallowed armored soldiers whole, and the village seemed alive with invisible hands striking at every step. The battle was fierce. The Zareth fought with anger, striking back with weapons and strength. Yet for every attack, the villagers had a counter. Jalen moved among them, placing explosives, guiding fighters, and striking when needed. Aaron led the front, her spear a blur as she directed villagers and cut down enemies. Hours passed in chaos. Smoke, fire, and battle cries filled the valley, yet slowly the advantage shifted. The Zareth commander realized he had underestimated the humans. Their courage, their planning, their unity. It was unlike anything he had faced. He roared in frustration, rallying his troops. "Do not let them survive," he bellowed. "Break their line! Show them the might of the Zareth." But each attempt failed. Every advance was met with fire, traps, and relentless human determination. The commander's pride, once a weapon, now became a blind spot. He underestimated the humans' willingness to fight for each other, for their home, and for the fire Jalen had lit within them. At the end of the day, the Zareth began to retreat. Their losses were severe. Soldiers who had never known defeat were shattered, their ranks broken. The commander, furious but alive, pulled back into the hills. He vowed silently that this village and the humans who had fallen from the sky would be his obsession until it was destroyed. Aaron stood at the front of her village, exhausted, bruised, and bloodied. Around her, villagers cheered, embracing one another, tears of relief mixing with sweat. Jalen approached, his weapon low, his face streaked with dirt. He placed a hand on her shoulder. "You did it," he said. "All of you, together." Aaron shook her head. "No, you did it. You showed us the way." Jalen smiled faintly. "We showed each other the way." That is what makes humans strong: trust, courage, and fire in the dark. The villagers looked at him with awe. They had never seen a being like him. He had fallen from the sky, fought alongside them, and given them skills they never imagined. He was not just a warrior. He was hope made flesh. That night, the village celebrated again, but it was different from before. They celebrated not only survival, but victory, strategy, and courage. They had learned that strength alone was not enough. Unity, planning, and trust could turn the tide. Aaron stood with Jalen at the ridge, looking at the stars. "Do you think they will come again?" she asked quietly. Jalen's eyes were steady. "Yes, they will. But next time they will find humans ready, not afraid, and together we will stand against them." Aaron nodded, feeling a fire in her chest she had never known before. The enemy's pride had brought them here, but it had also shown the villagers what they were capable of. And when the next storm came, they would be ready. The dawn broke over the valley of Laura like a promise. Light spilled across the hills, touching the rebuilt homes, the watchtowers, and the fields that had survived the fires. The villagers moved with purpose, checking traps, sharpening weapons, and tending to the wounded. Though tired and bruised from the last battle, they were alive, and alive with a new strength. Aaron walked among them, spear in hand. Her armor was scratched and dented, but her eyes shone with fire. She had never felt so alive. Her people, once frightened and uncertain, now stood tall. Every glance, every stance, every movement showed courage born from trial. Jalen stood at the edge of the training field, his weapon strapped to his back. Though he had fought countless battles in his life, he was impressed by what he saw. The villagers had learned fast, adapted quickly, and embraced courage he had thought rare among humans. But here on this distant world, they had proven him wrong. "They are ready," Aaron said softly, joining him. Jalen nodded. "Ready, yes. But we must be careful. The Zareth commander will not forget. He will come with everything he has." Aaron clenched her fist. "Let him come. We are no longer the weak villagers he thought we were. We are ready to fight to win." That night, the scouts reported movement far in the hills. Flames flickered faintly, marking the approach of the Zareth Legion. Unlike before, this force was massive. Hundreds of soldiers, armored and armed with advanced weaponry, all moving with perfect order under the gaze of their commander. The villagers gathered silently, each understanding their role. Children were hidden deep in the caves under the care of elders. Farmers gripped sharpened tools and spears. Hunters carried bows and crude crossbows crafted under Jalen's guidance. Every person, no matter how small or inexperienced, had a purpose. Jalen walked along the line, stopping to check positions. "Hold your ground. Do not chase them. Let them come to you. Use every advantage we have. Your land is your ally." Aaron moved beside him, raising her spear high. "We fight for our home, for our people, for everything we hold dear. Let them feel our fire." The villagers shouted together, their voices carrying across the valley. A single wave of courage that rolled toward the approaching enemy. The first clash began under the pale moonlight. The Zareth commander charged, his legion moving like a river of steel. But the villagers were prepared. Smoke and fire erupted from hidden pits. Explosives set by Jalen and the elders blocked key paths. Traps waited where the enemy least expected. Spears and arrows struck from above. The valley itself seemed alive, fighting alongside its people. Aaron led the front, her spear striking true. Every movement was calculated, every blow purposeful. She leapt over obstacles, twisted to avoid blades, and struck the enemy with precision. Jalen moved like a shadow among the soldiers, his weapon firing bursts of energy that fell like lightning upon the Zareth ranks. The enemy was powerful, but the villagers were determined. They fought with something the Zareth had never faced: unity, strategy, and the courage of people defending their home. Hours passed. The battle raged across fields, through broken walls and into narrow passes. Every advance of the Zareth was met with fire, traps, and relentless human determination. Their numbers were immense, but they faltered again and again, confused by the clever tactics of beings they had dismissed as weak. Aaron saw one of her villagers falter under pressure. A young man, barely trained, faced a towering Zareth soldier alone. Without thinking, she rushed forward, striking the enemy and saving him. "Do not fight alone," she shouted. "Stand together always." The villagers fought side by side, covering each other, defending every inch of their home. They were no longer simple farmers or hunters. They were soldiers trained by Jalen's guidance and their own courage. Jalen noticed a weak point in the enemy line. Aaron, lead the left flank. I'll strike the center. She nodded and signaled the villagers. They surged forward, flanking the enemy while Jalen fired from the ridge, cutting down key targets. The Zareth commander's pride was being challenged in a way he had never imagined. Every step forward for him came with losses. Every advance met by human ingenuity and fire. The battle reached its climax near the heart of the village. The Zareth commander, furious and humiliated, charged directly toward Aaron. His armor glowed in the moonlight, his weapon swinging with deadly force. Aaron stood her ground, spear raised, eyes locked on his. She remembered every lesson, every strike, every moment she had trained with Jalen. She moved with speed and precision, blocking his swings, dodging his attacks, and striking with calculated force. Jalen moved behind the commander, placing explosives near the enemy's supply cart. With a quiet count, he triggered them. The explosion rocked the battlefield, throwing Zareth soldiers off balance and breaking their formation. Aaron pressed forward, her spear reinforced with metal from Jalen's pod, striking the commander's armor. Sparks flew and the mighty Zareth stumbled. The villagers seized the moment, attacking with everything they had. Together they overwhelmed the commander, forcing him to retreat at last. The Zareth legion, leaderless and demoralized, scattered into the hills. The valley was safe for now. The village erupted with joy. People hugged one another, tears streaming down their faces. Children ran through the fields shouting with relief. Farmers and hunters, once ordinary, cheered for the strength they had found in themselves. They had survived the impossible, fought the unstoppable, and won. Aaron dropped her spear, exhausted, and looked at Jalen. We did it, together. Jalen smiled, though his body ached from the long battle. No, you did it. All of you. I only helped show the way. The courage, the fire, that was always here. Aaron nodded, understanding. Humanity had given them knowledge, skill, and determination, but the villagers' courage had carried the day. The fire had been theirs all along. That evening, as the villagers rebuilt and tended to the wounded, Jalen made a decision. I need to contact my people, he said to Aaron. They need to know I am alive and they will come, not to conquer but to help. Aaron studied him. Will they come? How many? Jalen shrugged. Many. Enough to defend Laura, enough to protect your people. Humanity does not turn away from those who fight for what is right. The villagers listened, astonished. Humans from the sky, beings of fire and courage, would return. They would come not as conquerors, but as allies. The next day, Jalen stood on the ridge looking at the stars. Aaron joined him, spear in hand. The village stretched below them, rebuilt in part, but alive and ready for the future. You changed us, Aaron said softly. Not just in battle, but in spirit. We believe we can survive anything now. Jalen turned to her, eyes steady. No, you changed yourselves. I only showed you the way. That is humanity's gift. Courage, hope, and the will to fight even when the odds are impossible. Aaron looked out across the valley. The smoke of old fires had faded. The ground was scarred but fertile, and the people of Laura were standing taller than ever. Then we will not fear the future, she said. We will stand always, Jalen nodded. And when my people arrive, we will stand together. Not as strangers, not as saviors, but as allies. The stars above seemed to shine brighter. The fire of hope, kindled by courage and human guidance, burned in the hearts of the villagers. Laura had survived. Humanity had fallen from the sky, and in its fire, the village had found strength it never knew it had. And for the first time, Aaron realized something powerful. The spear that broke had not marked an end. It had marked a beginning. A human had fallen from the sky, and the world would never be the same. The night was calm. The villagers slept under the open sky. Children dreaming safely, elders smiling quietly. Aaron and Jalen remained on the ridge a while longer, watching the horizon. Do you think they will return? Aaron asked quietly. They will, Jalen said. But now you are ready. Humanity is a gift, yes, but the courage you carry is yours forever. Aaron smiled, the fire of hope burning bright in her chest. Then we are ready, always. The stars sparkled above them, and the valley of Laura, scarred but alive, whispered its promise that even in the darkest times, courage, unity, and the fire of humanity could light the way.